I really get a kick out of the different opinions that people have about Bible translations, and I'm not trying to belittle it. I understand why people have their opinions, and there's a lot of validity in the different views that are expressed when it comes to Bible translations. But one of the views that people talk about, one of the opinions that they express, has to do with the English Standard Version, and they will say that the ESV has what they call Yoda speak, where the word order is out of order from how we normally talk and convey things in English. And so instead of saying something like, "You are very funny," you would say, "Funny are you?" You know, it's just kind of backwards from how we normally talk. So people say that about the ESV. But I was thinking about a famous line from a speech that actually contains what you might call Yoda speak, but it's really because of the word order being out of what we normally use for word order that it's actually very memorable and powerful. And it's a speech really from like not that long ago, from the 1960s. And there's a line that everybody remembers. It's been widely quoted, and maybe you can guess what it is. But the beginning of it actually does contain Yoda speak. The words are out of order, but it's actually very powerful in the way that it conveys things. And so I want to show this to you. It is the phrase, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." So you can see it's actually a really powerful rhetorical device being used here. Imagine if he said, "Don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." It's just not the same. Or, "Do not ask what your country can do for you." It's not the same. It's not as memorable, powerful. It doesn't have that rhetorical force that you get here when it says, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." So I'm not saying that in every case it's better for Bible translations to use Yoda speak, but I do think people can sometimes tease it too much and not understand that it can actually be really powerful and a literary device to have word order in a way that's different than we normally speak. It might be what you call more poetic in some instances. So I really think that some translations, like the English Standard Version and the New King James Version, as well as the King James Version, of course, really take hold of this and utilize this very well. And yet some people look down on it, but in reality, I think there are instances where I would say it's actually better. Now, this is just a matter of opinion. Not everybody is going to agree on this, and it's not a hill to die on from my perspective. But I want to show a verse that I think really is captured beautifully in the English Standard Version and really harks back to more traditional renderings versus the more modern way of rendering this verse. And it's Isaiah 41:10, which, as you can see here, the ESV says, "Fear not." There it is again, that backwards word order. Instead of saying "do not fear," which you do see in other translations, or "don't worry," it says, "Fear not, for I am with you." And then here again it's out of order. "Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." That is very poetic, very beautifully put, very memorable in my opinion. But if you look at these other translations, a lot of them say, "Do not worry, don't be afraid, do not be afraid, do not fear." I mean, those are okay, but I don't think that these verses are as beautifully put, and I would say they're not as memorable, not as powerful, really. The NASB 95, really is unpoetic in my opinion. It said, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." That's very clear what's being said there, and there's value in that because you can understand what's being said in a very stark way. But as far as beauty and literary quality, I'm going to give the points to the ESV. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And I think evidence for the rhetorical power of that kind of wording is seen in the example that I'm talking about here, ask not what your country can do for you. I think you would agree that that quote is a quote that stands out in people's minds, and I think most people would say it would be good to change the wording of that, to reword it in the way that we normally talk. So that's basically what I'm saying here with the English Standard Version. Again, I think other ways of wording things is valid, and it can actually be easier for people to understand, and maybe actually help them internalize, as I said before, what they're reading, because it's the way they normally talk. But from a literary perspective, there's also power and beauty in wording things in that way, that's what we would call out of order or Yoda speak. So I just wanted to throw some thoughts into this discussion that people sometimes talk about, and kind of make the case that I think while I don't want every translation to be that way, it's good to have some translations out there like the ESV, and I can understand why a lot of people like the way that the ESV is worded. It sounds a lot more like the older translations, while other people will kind of tease it for that. But I think that there is actually some real validity and value in what's being done in the ESV and translations that word things in a way that's a little bit out of order from what we're used to. I'd like to hear your opinions on this subject, and maybe some different examples of verses in different translations where you might say, well, it's better in this case to word it in a more modern way, or it's better in this case to word it in a more classic way. So feel free to give your thoughts and examples, but thank you so much for taking some time to listen to some of my thoughts on this subject from a Frisch Perspective.